adversity and the Battle of Dunkirk. 250,000 Allied troops were rescued from the beaches of northern France in the teeth of a deadly German attack. But out of this disaster, something momentous was born: the Dunkirk spirit, a feeling of solidarity and pulling together in the face of adversity. The heart and soul of the Dunkirk spirit were the so-called little ships. Many of them were sort of 1940s equivalents of these modern-day pleasure cruisers. And in all, over 600 boats of all shapes and sizes came together across the Channel and helped rescue the British Army. Now, if they'd failed in that mission, the outcome of the Second World War could have been very different. Freddie Hunn was a member of the 12th Lancers Regiment, part of the British Expeditionary Force. Known as the BEF, it was sent to defend France against the Germans.
We had the impression that the war would be over in a couple of months until we met the enemy. Everywhere we looked, we just couldn't hold them.
The BEF was forced back to the coast, to the beaches and harbour at Dunkirk. Defeated, but still defiant.
I'd loaded up every pocket I had with .38 ammunition. I thought I'd shoot until all that ammunition was expended, and then I'd have to surrender. I was thinking, surrounded by dead bodies. And that's just how I felt.
Some soldiers waded to large naval ships out at sea. Others, like Freddie, were picked up closer to shore by the little civilian ships.
We were trained, that was our job. These civilians, they just volunteered and bought their own boats. I mean, if that's not bravery, what is? When I got to Margate, there was signs saying, "Welcome home, brave BF." I didn't feel a bit brave, and we had nothing when we came back to England to defend the country. And I felt a little bit ashamed.
Many of the boats that sailed to Dunkirk have been preserved by new skippers. Trevor Phillips owns a vessel called Tom Tit. It was taken to Dunkirk by two brothers. Like many skippers, they ran a shuttle service between the town and the larger ships in deep water.
She's operating in the harbour itself, not on the beach. She's accessed a thing called the East Mole, a structure built out across the harbour mouth.
How dangerous was it for a boat this size, I presume not the quickest boat, to keep going backwards and forwards under enemy fire?
Well, they were clearly an easy target for the Luftwaffe in particular. She's only made of wood with paraffin engines, so she would ignite immediately, and there's no doubt that if she was hit, as indeed a lot of the little Dunkirk ships, there would have been no survivors on board.
Operation Dynamo, as the evacuation was known, was hailed as a victory.
Defeat of the Northern Allied armies was averted by a miracle of fighting genius. The order to withdraw was given. The most brilliant rearguard action in military history began.
But the politicians and generals running the war from these rooms had a different view. They realised Dunkirk was a disaster. The British Army had been defeated. And we're not talking about conscripts or part-timers here. These were the country's finest professional soldiers.
There is an air of defiance, the Dunkirk spirit in Britain at the time. Our boys are back and the fight goes on. For those in the know, it's a very worrying time indeed. This is a defeat. It's a military defeat. The BEF has gone to France, ready for battle, fully equipped, and has come back with its tail between its legs and with most of its heavy equipment left behind. But it has come back. The anticipation was that maybe 30 or 40,000 soldiers would be pulled away before the whole thing had to be shut down. Instead, they bring back 338,000 men. You're talking about complete catastrophe, probably negotiated peace without that army coming home.
So how does Churchill balance the reality with keeping morale up?
He does say that wars are not won by evacuations, and he doesn't try and delude the British public about the enormity of the situation that they're in. But he then moves rapidly on to an air of defiance.
We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Central to the Dunkirk spirit is the legend of the little ships. And how can an old soldier plucked from the beaches resist the chance 70 years later to take a ride on a fellow Dunkirk veteran?
It makes you appreciate the people who went out of their way like this to do what they did. But for them, where would it have been?
And tomorrow, a gathering of small